Today my first topic is binomial distribution. One of the widely used probability distributions for discrete random variable is binomial distribution. This binomial distribution describes discrete, not continuous, remember, discrete, not continuous data resulting Bernoulli's trials. After the 17th century Swiss mathematician Jacob Bernoulli. The tossing of a fair coin a fixed number of times is a Bernoulli trial, as we know, as we learned before, and the outcomes of such tosses can be represented by a binomial distribution. For a coin toss, head equal to success, which is denoted by S, capital S, and tail is equal to failure, which is denoted by capital F. Let the experiment made up of 3 Bernoulli trials with probabilities P and Q, where Q is equal to 1 minus P, because P plus Q is equal to total probability, that is 1. So Q is equal to 1 minus P for success and failures respectively in each trial. Therefore, the sample space of the experiment is the set S, where S is equal to, under the second bracket, S, that means 3 successes, then 2 success, 1 failure, then success, failure, success, then failure, success, again success, failure, then F, then double F, that means 2 failures and then a success, and finally 3F, that means 3 failures. Hence the number of successes can take the values 0, 1, 2 and 3, because there are total 3 trials. Now the probability of x is equal to 0, that means random variable is equal to 0, is equal to actually probability of no success, that means all the outcomes will be 10. So this is equal to the only probability of f. Here is no s, that means no success. Now the 3 trials are independent trials, that's why it becomes probability of f into probability of f into probability of f. So probability of f was q, so it's q into q into q, that means q. Now the probability of random variable is equal to 1, that means probability of 1 success. Then the probability will be SFF, here there is 1 success and 2 failures, then FSF, failure, success, failure, then FFS, failure and finally a success. So the trials are all independent, that means it becomes probability of success into probability of failure into probability of failure again, and so on. Now probability of success means P and probability of failure means Q, so it becomes PQ square. Again it becomes PQ square and it becomes PQ square. So total it becomes 3PQ square. Now we proceed to probability of x is equal to 2. Now probability of x is equal to 2 means there are 2 successes, so it becomes probability of SSF, SFS and finally 1 failure and 2 successes. So the independent trials, for the independent trials it becomes probability of S into P of S into P of F plus P of S into P of F into P of S plus P of F into P of S into P of S. So probability of success is equal to P, then again P into Q. So actually it becomes P square Q. Again it becomes P square Q and finally it also P square Q. So in total it becomes 3P square Q. And finally probability of x is equal to 3 means probability of getting 3 successes. So it's the only possibility, P of SSS. So for the independent trials it becomes P of S into P of S into P of S, that means P into P into P is equal to PQ. So these are the probability. The probability distribution becomes, when x is equal to 0, it becomes P of x is equal to QQ. When x is equal to 1, P of x is equal to 3PQ square. When x is equal to 2, P of x is equal to 3P square Q. And finally, when x is equal to 3, that means for 3 successes, it becomes PQ. Also, the binomial expansion Q plus P whole cube shows QQ plus 3PQ square plus 3P square Q plus PQ. So we may conclude that in an experiment of n Bernoulli's trials, the probabilities of 0, 1, 2 up to n successes can be obtained as first, second, third and up to n plus 1th terms of the expansion of q plus p whole to the power n. Therefore, the probabilities of x successes in n Bernoulli's trials will be n factorial by x factorial into n minus x factorial into p to the power x into q to the power n minus x. Now this is equal to NCX, combination formula NCX, and p to the power x into q to the power n minus x. Now probability of x success will be equal to NCX p to the power x into q to the power n minus x. Actually it is x plus 1th term of the expansion of q plus p whole to the power n. Thus the probability distribution of number of successes in an experiment consisting of n Bernoulli's trials may be obtained by the binomial expansion of q plus p whole to the power n. Hence the distribution can be written as following: when x is equal to 0, it becomes nc0 q to the power n. When x is equal to 1, it becomes nc1 p to the power 1 into q to the power n minus 1. When x is equal to 2, it becomes nc2 p square q to the power n minus 2. When x is equal to x, that means random variable is equal to x, then ncx p to the power x into q to the power n minus x. And finally, when x is equal to n, it becomes ncn p to the power n. So the above probability distribution is known as binomial distribution. This distribution is known as binomial distribution with parameters n and p, because for given values of n and p we can find the complete probability distribution. Now the probability of x success, that means p of random variable is equal to x, can be written as p of small x, which is equal to ncx p to the power x into q to the power n minus x, where x is equal to 0, 1, 2 up to n, and q is equal to 1 minus p as we told before. And this p of x, p of small x, is called actually the probability function of binomial distribution. Now we'll discuss an example to understand binomial distribution better. Suppose 10 eggs are drawn successively with replacement, mind it, with replacement, from a lot containing 10% defective eggs. Find the probability, we have to find the probability that there is at least one defective egg. In this question, you can pause the video and write the question on your exercise book. So do it. Let x denote the number of defective eggs in 10 eggs drawn. Since the draw is done with replacement, therefore clearly the trials are Bernoulli's trials, obviously. Clearly x has a binomial distribution with n is equal to 10 and p is equal to 10 by 100, that means 1 by 10. Therefore q will become 1 minus p, that means 1 minus 1 by 10, which is equal to 9 by 10. So the probability of at least one defective egg is equal to probability of x greater equal to 1, which is equal to actually probability of x greater equal to 1. So this one is equal to 1 minus probability of x is equal to 0. That means 1 minus 10 is 0, 9 by 10 whole to the power 10. Now 10 is 0 becomes 1, so it becomes 1 minus 9 to the power 10 by 10 to the power 10. Now let's come to the preliminary portions of probability. If anyone feels he or she is well known about this portion, can leave this video here. The word probability is synonymous with the word chance. Actually it is used in our daily life and in a wide variety of contexts. For example, probably it will rain tomorrow. Probably he is an honest person. What is the probability of getting a head in a coin toss, etc. So basically, any attempt towards a theory of probability naturally begins with a question as to the probability of what we are interested in. The immediate answer is obviously events. This, however, introduces only a general name which is no way self-explanatory. Our first task then will be to make precise the meaning of the term event. The meaning of the term event and proper context in which it will be used in our mathematical theory. For this, we come to the idea of what are called random experiments or observations. Random experiment. We will use this term in various topics of probability. It is also called observations. Now the question is what the need of probability was and what its history was. If we talk about early probability theorists, then we can't forget the names of Jacob Bernoulli, Abraham de Moivre, the Reverend Thomas Bess, and Joseph Lagrange. In the 19th century, Pierre Simon, Marquis de Laplace unified all the early ideas and compiled the first general theory of probability. Basically, it was at first it was successfully applied in the Gamble tables. Also, it was in the 19th century when the insurance industries required precise knowledge about the risk of loss in order to calculate premiums. Within 50 years, many learning centers are studying probability as a tool for understanding social phenomena. Today, the mathematical theory of probability is a basis for statistical applications in both social and decision-making research. Let us consider an experiment of throwing a particle vertically upwards with a given initial velocity under constant gravity g in the medium which offers no resistance. Mind it, there is no resistance in the medium. Then the greatest height, capital H, can be obtained by the formula. This capital H can be obtained by the formula u square by 2g. Here we can predict the values of the greatest height with certainty if the initial velocity is u and the acceleration due to the gravity g, small g, is unknown. Further, if the experiment be repeated under identical conditions, the value of the greatest height will be the same in every performance. Now, if we carefully examine the meaning of the term identical condition, we find that the experiment once performed can't be performed under exactly same conditions. So actually identical conditions mean not exactly identical but as identical as possible. So the basic conviction of the science, identical conditions yield identical results, can be verified only in the approximate sense. That's why I've written here identical conditions means approximately identical conditions, not exactly identical. Now we will come to the idea of random experiments. An experiment capital E is said to be a random experiment if it satisfies these three conditions. The first condition is all possible outcomes of random experiment E are known in advance. Suppose we are tossing a coin. For a coin toss, all possible outcomes will be head or tail. So these are known in advance. The second condition is it is possible to predict which outcome will occur at a particular performance of the random experiment E. That means if we are tossing a coin, it is impossible to predict head or tail which outcome will occur. And finally, E can be repeated at least conceptually under identical conditions, which means approximately identical conditions for infinite number of times. Yeah, we can toss a coin infinite number of times. Now, what an event space is? The set of all possible outcomes of a random experiment, capital E, is said to be an event space. It's denoted by capital S. For a coin toss, the set S is equal to head and tail. This is the event space for a coin toss, and each outcome of the random experiment is called an event. That means each element of an event space is called an event. That means if for a coin toss, each outcome head or tail is an event. Now for throwing a die, the conditions event phase can have three results: 2, 4 or 6. Even phase, it can be 2, it can be 4 or it can be 6. So the event phase, it can be decomposed into three simple events. So mind it, the event phase can be decomposed into three simple events: 2, 4 and 6. So the event phase is decomposed into three simple events. So the events which cannot be decomposed further is called simple events, and the compound events are those which can be decomposed into simple events. Now we will discuss some special type of events. First one is certain events. An event which is sure to occur is in any performance of random experiment is called a certain event. For example, we can say that the head or tail is certain event for coin toss. Impossible events. The second type is impossible event. The events which are logically impossible to occur. That means the events which can never occur in any performance of a random experiment is called an impossible event. For example, we can say that getting a 7 while we are rolling a die is an impossible event. Furthermore, in depth, we can say that a certain event can be decomposed into all possible simple events, while an impossible event cannot be decomposed into any one of them. Also, when an event occurs, another event invariably occurs, then the former event is called said to, that means the former event is said to imply the latter one. For example, the event 2 or 4 or 6 implies that the event phase for throwing a die. Also, we can say any event implies the certain event. Now, what is equivalent or identical events? Two events are said to be equivalent or identical if any one of them implies and is implied by. This is the sign for implies and is implied by the other. Thus, the events 2 or 4 or 6 and the event phase are equivalent or identical events. 2 or 4 or 6 and event phase. These are equivalent or identical events. Now, what is mutually exclusive events? If two events cannot occur simultaneously, then they are called mutually exclusive events for a given random experiment capital E. And if we say elaborately, we can say that two events connected to a random experiment capital E are said to be mutually exclusive if A and B can never occur simultaneously in any performance of E. That means AB is equal to 0. For example, we can say that for a rolling of die, the events getting an even number and getting an odd number are mutually exclusive. That means the event that getting an even phase and getting a odd phase, they are mutually exclusive. Now, another type of event is complementary events. An event which consists of in the negation of another event is called complementary event. For rolling a die, the event getting a multiple of 3 and not getting a multiple of 3 are complementary events to each other. Next is exhaustive set of events. A collection of events is said to be exhaustive of set of events if in every performance of the corresponding random experiment E, at least one of the events belonging to the collection is sure to occur. In set theoretic notation, we can say that the collection of events A alpha, where alpha belongs to I is the index set, I have mentioned it here, I is the index set, is exhaustive set of events if and only if summation of alpha belongs to I, A of alpha is equal to S, where S is the sample space or event space connected to the random experiment E. Now we will discuss an important portion of probability, that is statistical regularity. Let a random experiment capital E be repeated capital N number of times under identical conditions. Identical conditions means approximately identical conditions, as I told before, in which we note that the event capital A of capital E occurs N a number of times. N a number of times. Then the ratio Na by capital N is called the frequency ratio of A, of the event A, and this is also denoted by f of A, function of A, and it is seen that if E be repeated a very large number of times, it is seen that capital f of A gradually stabilizes to a more or less constant. That means if A is equal to Na by N gradually tends to a constant as capital N becomes larger and larger. This tendency of stability of frequency ratio is called the statistical regularity, and this fact is confirmed by many experimental results. Now we will discuss the classical definition of probability. Towards the beginning of 19th century, Laplace gave a formal definition of probability, which goes by the name of classical definition. The theory of probability developed on the basis of classical definition is known as the classical theory of probability. In the classical theory, the definition of probability will be let the event space S, capital S, of a random experiment, capital E, be finite. If the simple events connected to E be equally likely, then the probability of event A, which is a subset of the sample space or event space S, is denoted by probability of A is equal to m by n, where n is the number of events, number of simple events favorable to A, and n is the total number of simple events of sample space S. That is, A contains m number of simple events. Now, if you guys have no idea about the equally likely, then go to my second video on probability and watch it there. I'll mention the link of my second video in the description box of this video. For the classical definition, we will discuss frequency definition of probability. Let A be an event of a random experiment E. Let the event A occur in a number of times when E is repeated n times under identical conditions. Then, on basis of statistical regularity, we can say that the limit n tends to infinity, Na by n exists finitely, and the value of this limit is called the probability of the event A, which is denoted by probability of A. That means probability of A is equal to limit n tends to infinity Na by n, which is equal to limit n tends to infinity f of A, where f A is equal to Na by n is the frequency ratio of A in the n repetitions of the random experiment E. Now finally we will learn the axiomatic definition of probability. To define it, we can say that let E be a random experiment and S be the corresponding event space. Also let delta be the class of subsets of S forming the class of events of E. A mapping P from delta to R is called the probability function defined on delta, and the unique real number P of A determined by P is called the probability of the event A, where A belongs to delta, if the following axioms, known as axioms of probability, are satisfied. The first one is P of A is greater or equal to 0 for every A belongs to delta. P of sample space is equal to 1, and finally if A1, A2 up to An and infinity, we are uncountably infinite pairwise mutually exclusive events, then P of a1 plus a2 plus an plus dot dot is equal to P of a1 plus P of a2 plus dot dot P of an plus up to infinite. The entire mathematical theory of probability will be built by three objects. The first one is the event space, second one is the class of events delta, third one is the probability function p from delta to r. The ordered 3 tuple S delta p is called the probability space. So guys, today's video is over. It was a bit long. Thanks for watching, and keep updated whenever I add any video in my channel by subscribing. As usual, like this video and share with your friends and family. Thank you.